Okay, 12.4, volume of prisms and cylinders. We're moving from surface area to volume. Remember, surface area was the area of all the pieces that make up the figure added together. Volume is the space inside a 3D figure. The volume of a cube is side cubed. This is a shortcut versus using the rectangular prism formulas, which is okay to do. It's the same idea. It is not on the formula sheet. Volume of prisms, this will work for any prism. And this is on your formula sheet, the same place where you found your surface area and lateral area of any prism. It does look like a triangular prism on your formula sheet, but it will work for any prism. So it could be a triangular prism or an octagonal prism or a hexagonal prism. As long as it's a prism, this will work. Be careful with this formula. It's the area of the base. Remember, the bases are the two parallel congruent parts multiplied by the height of the 3D figure. Be careful, this is not the height of the base. So be really careful you don't make that mistake. Volume of a cylinder, this is exactly what's on the formula sheet. Pi times radius squared times height. Let's look at some examples. First one, this is a trapezoid prism. If you see the two trapezoids on the top and on the bottom, and then of course the rectangles that make up the side, that's what makes this a prism. We have two congruent parallel bases connected by rectangles. That makes this a prism, which means we're allowed to use that formula from your formula sheet, area of the base times the height of the 3D figure. So the first thing we need to do is to find the area of the base. This base is a trapezoid, so on your blue formula sheet, you should see this formula for the area of a trapezoid. 1/2 times the height times the sum of the bases. Be really careful you don't make mistakes with this either. So your base is going to be this trapezoid. And if I draw you a really quick sketch here, we have this base as 6, this base as 14, and the height of the figure is 3. So I just pulled that information off that 3D figure. So when I put this into my formula, 1/2, 3 is the height of my trapezoid, and then the sum of the bases, 6 and 14. This first part is my capital B, area of the base. And H is my height. Remember, the height is when the prism is sitting on the base. It's actually sitting on the base. So the height of the 3D object is 5. Plug all that in, the volume of that formula is 150 centimeters cubed. Big idea for that is making sure that you find the correct area of the base. The next one, we have a volume of a cylinder given to us, and we're working backwards to find the radius. Volume is 684 pi, height is 18, we're asked to find the radius. Like any of these problems, you want to make sure you start by writing your correct formula. This is the volume of a cylinder. We know that the volume is 684 pi. We know the height is 18. Try to give you guys some different colors here so you can follow what I'm doing. The first thing I did to simplify, because again, we're trying to get r by itself, I divided both sides by 18. When I did that, the 18s and the pi's cancel, so I have r squared on the right. When I divide this out, I get 38. When I square root both sides, this ends up being a decimal, and I rounded it to 6. So the radius is 6 inches. If you wanted to give a decimal answer, that's okay too. 2 more examples. This one, again, you have to work backwards. You're given a cone, you're given the volume, using your formula to work backwards. Let me walk you through my steps. Write your correct formula. This is the volume of a cone. So one thing I do want to mention, that volume looks like this: 1/3 times pi times the radius squared times height. Multiplying by 1/3 and dividing by 3 mean the same thing. So you can see when I went from my formula to substitution, when I substituted, instead of putting that 1/3 in there, because that gives you a bad idea of multiplying by 0.3. It can be okay in some circumstances, but it's best to keep 3 in the denominator. So when I substituted, my radius is labeled as x, so I replace that with x. And the height, remember it's not the slant height, it's the height in this case, is 9. So this first red step here is just substitution. The next thing I did, and you could have multiplied both sides by 3, but I noticed that 9 and 3 are very easily simplified, so that's what I did. If you notice what changed from the red to the green, 9/3 became 3. My next step is I divided both sides by 3 pi. So the 3's canceled, the pi's canceled. Over here, the pi canceled, divide by 3, you get 49. square root and found the radius is exactly 7. The next one, finding the volume. So this is a prism. This is a triangular prism. Hopefully you can see there's two right triangles that are connected by rectangles. That's what makes it a prism. We're using that formula that we used a few minutes ago, area of the base times the height of the 3D figure, so that we can figure out the volume of this triangular prism. So the first thing, that capital B is the area of this triangle. So if you look at this triangle, you know, any right triangle, you have to know the base and the height in order to find the area. You will never use that hypotenuse to find the area of a triangle. So I know the base is 60 if you look at my picture here. I don't know the height of that triangle. So I have to use the Pythagorean theorem, and I did it here. You can pause it and look at it if you need to. That height, or that B side, or one of the legs, is 91. So going back to my formula, the area of the base, which is a triangle, is 1/2 base times height. The base is 60. The height of that triangle I just calculated using the Pythagorean theorem is 91. So this is capital B, 1/2 base times height for that triangle. H is the height of that figure when it's laying on its base. So since this is a prism, it's not sitting on its base. You have to imagine it laying on that triangle. If it was laying on the triangle, the height of this 3D figure is 45. That's where my H comes from. Plug all of that in, and it's a rather large number, 122,850 yards cubed. And remember, you got a quiz next time on 12.4, and the homework is posted on Schoology.